I'm Linda Moskalyk, she, and located in Saskatoon.
And Tom Gode, he, and again in Saskatoon.
So what brought you into the climate movement? What is your climate why?
I think we've always worked with environmental causes. And we work down in Costa Rica a lot with researchers at a nature reserve. I think that's where we first started talking about wanting to get to know a little bit more about climate change, because we work with students and visitors that come by and stuff. So we took the climate reality training in Toronto.
And since then, we've had grandchildren, which just reinforces it. And yeah.
Well, it's definitely important. You want them to have a future that's, beautiful, right? Yeah. So how long have you been a climate reality leader, and what motivated you to apply for the training?
Well, yeah, I think we kind of covered what motivated us. It was just working with young people. We get a lot of tourists up at the nature reserve where we work as well. And so it's nice to be able to get the conversations going with other people, whether it's tourists or young people. And we just felt like, yeah, we needed to know the facts and be able to present it in a better way. So yeah, that was probably what motivated us, and our grandchildren, and just the environment in general. Like, we care about what's going to happen in the future.
But I think a lot of it was, again, geared towards, we work with young people, and we see the need for policy change. And it's not an area where people in biology tend to move towards. They tend to be people who like to be out in the countryside. And so we wanted to be able to give good factual information and encourage people to step up and try to make some policy change.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. I have a science background as well, so I hear you there. So what is the most challenging part of your advocacy work, and how has the Leadership Corps training or the Climate Reality Network overall helped you to overcome this challenge?
I think the most challenging part is talking to other people about it and convincing other people that they need to also learn a little bit more about it and take some action of some kind. So I mean, we try to do things to I think it's hard. I've tried talking to people about it and trying to convince people especially that aren't that interested in it. But I find it's hard to convince them that way. It's easier to convince them if we do what we do and they see and they can kind of learn by example. I find that is the better way. And sometimes that gets people curious. Like, we bought an electric car. And I mean, I talk to people about it and they're like, wow, there's not enough charging stations. There's not this, there's not that. They're too expensive. And all of that is true. But so they don't even want to think about it or look into it or consider it in the future. But when we bought one, you have people asking questions about it now. How do you like it? And how many kilometers do you get? And, how far have you gone in it? So, yeah, I think just sometimes doing things, it sets a good example. And that is part of our advocacy.
Yeah, I mean, I think setting the example is a piece of it. I mean, we put solar on our roof, and within a year, our neighbor, after talking with us, immediately put solar onto his roof, because I think it gave him the confidence that he wasn't going to be, the odd person in the neighborhood, where we were okay being the odd person in the neighborhood. So I think that's a piece of it. And again, I think, the challenge is, we can educate the public one person at a time, but again, if we can change a policymaker, we have the ability to change systems. And I think, to me, that's the challenging piece, and recognize the fact that that's how we will make change. And So that's kind of the approach that we're slowly moving more and more in towards is how do we impact the policymakers?
Yeah, I think that is probably the biggest challenge is talking to our leaders, whether it's provincial or municipal leaders. And we're trying really hard to do that now, whether it's through letter writing, we've set up meetings with them, things like that, because some of them, they seem to be sort of on board, but still not really doing anything about it. And we work mostly with trees. We are advocacy group for trees. For us, it's super important that we get a bigger canopy cover over our city. So that's going to be so important for the future for keeping our cities cool. And that is going very slowly here in Saskatoon. In fact, I think we're removing more trees than we're planting. So that is something we have been focusing on, is how to get more trees planted and to convince the city they need to plant more. And we have a group called SOS Trees Coalition. And so we talk to councillors, we talk to residents, and then
We plant trees.
and we plant trees. So yeah, so that is a big part of our focus.
Okay.
I think the other challenge that we struggle with is the pace, the inaction, how long it takes to move anything from where it currently is to a better place. We're at that point in our lives where you don't want things to sit in committee for 2 or 3 years. And you get really frustrated watching report after report come out that says basically the same thing, but still no action that actually makes a difference. So
Yeah, I definitely hear you there. It's very disheartening when you read the media. I try to do it as less as possible these days, simply because the news is just the same in different places, right? So yeah.
And Climate Reality Network has really helped. And I mean, I gave a lot of presentations, which I wouldn't have done before if I wouldn't have had the training. So that helps. And I used to be really good at recording everything on my Climate Reality site of what I was doing. But now, truthfully, after you've done it for a while, you don't even think about it. And I feel like every day we're doing something, some kind of climate action, And so I kind of stopped recording them, whether it's biking or going on climate walks or climate, just different climate meetings or talking to our counselors or whatever. I just found it was almost too much trying to record it all. And we just, I think after doing the training and then getting some practice and forcing yourself, because at first it kind of feels a little bit forced because you're just learning. After a while, you just start, you don't even realize you're doing it. And I mean, I've even gone up to people who have left their car idling and they're just sitting there in that car's island, and gone up and tapped on their window and said, "Hey, did you know, and talk to them about it," and they haven't got upset at me, and they did shut their vehicle off. So I think it's just, after a while you just do these things.
Yeah, it comes kind of second nature to you when you have enough practice.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. Awesome. You guys seem to be doing really great work, and that's really exciting. So thank you. What is your favorite part of the climate work that you do, and what motivates you to continue?
For me, I think it is all of the connections that we make. So we are with the tree group, SOS Trees Coalition, but now we have collaborated with so many other groups just because we're trying to get this tree canopy planted. But it also means looking at other things like planting native plants and all these things so you don't need to water as much. And so everything kind of ties in. It doesn't matter which group, but there's so many environmental groups working on their own little piece. But then we came together a few weeks ago for a climate walk, and it was so nice. We talked about so many different things. So I think making those connections, and I think it's really important, and that's probably the best way to get things done.
Yeah, my favorite part would be outcomes. I mean, high points would be we did a tree planting with 270 elementary school kids. To me, that was a high point of the year. To watch the kids' enthusiasm and the school had prepped them very well. I mean, they were much better informed than we anticipated that they would be. But to watch a sixth grader showing a pre-kindergarten kid how to plant the tree is pretty amazing to see. And in Costa Rica, we do reforestation there of old ag land. So again, at the end of the day, you can see that there's 100 trees or 500 trees in the ground. And we've been at it down there long enough that we can see trees that we planted 17, 18 years ago are now forest, and the wildlife's returned. It's there where things move a little faster than up here. They can go a whole lot faster than they do up here, but regardless, to me, just to be able to, and I still go back and I walk through where we planted last year and where we planted the year before, and yeah, I mean, it's the outcome and again, the impact you can have on people to multiply that effect.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, this wasn't on the question list, but how did you get started in, the organization that you are running through, like going to schools and getting youth to plant trees with you? How did that come about? And
well, SOS Trees Coalition has been going since 1992, and it was just a bunch of citizens coming together. They were worried about Dutch elm disease, which was coming across Canada, and we didn't have it at that time, but we were pushing the government to have a better pruning program to keep the dead wood out of the trees, which is very important. So the disease, once we got it, wouldn't spread. And so they advocated for that and did get more funding from the provincial government. But as the years went on, more people joined, and I wasn't in it right at the very beginning, but then when I joined, we also decided that that wasn't the only tree issue. There was many issues, different insects and invasive insects and diseases, which is really something right now with the changing climate, we're seeing more of that. So we advocate for all trees, whether it's protection of the existing trees or for planting more trees. So yeah, it's a citizens group that came together. The other place in Costa Rica was started by a couple from New York, and Tom got involved with that as their director. And so we became very involved as the years went on for planting trees and helping them with that project.
But I think up here, one thing that changed significantly was 3 years ago, we instituted Arbor Week with a small subcommittee of people, and which that was COVID. The following year, we were citywide, and really with a small group of about a half dozen people, we ran 20 some events in 20 some different venues around the city. We did tree planting as well as lots of education pieces, and we began putting out a regular newsletter. And Linda laughs at me, but we collect names. I collect emails. And so we've moved from a mailing list of, 30 people to a mailing list of 500 now. And so now when we get ready to do a counselor meeting, which we're currently doing, we have a pool of 500 people. They're not all paid members, but they're all people that have an interest in trees and have come to something that we've done. So again, it's building and expanding that network of people that you can go back to.
And no matter what we talk about when we are talking about the trees, whether it be tree protection or why are they cutting those trees down, or some insect that's in the city that's a threat, we always bring the conversation back to climate change. So it seems no matter what the issue is with trees, it is so connected because we really need to get more trees planted. So we have I think it's a good argument when we're talking to counselors and other people that, It's not just because this is a pretty tree. There's a reason why we need to save it, and or protect it. So yeah.
And we're using that in areas where we haven't had support, especially in the newer suburbs. They were designed without trees, basically. And the counselors in those areas are not tree-friendly people. And so actually we have our first meeting tomorrow night with an unhelpful person. And, we're taking the approach that, you're representing communities that are going to be showing, I mean, the data shows us that they're going to be 15, 20 degrees hotter than the places with trees. And so now we're talking equity, even though they're more affluent neighborhoods, they're not going to be the place that people want to live in 20 years. And so we go back to the climate change data on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. No, that's
And,
very
yeah, sometimes I think we have to put it, for some people, it has to be put in terms of financial, and economic. So I guess there's different ways of approaching it. So we just kind of think of what are crowds going to be? What are they going to get out of it? And if they don't care about trees and they don't care, about climate change in general for their grandchildren, then we can talk finances and property value, and the fact that, yes, those houses, people aren't going to want to live there someday. They're going to want to live in the core neighborhoods where there's still lots of big trees, not in those new neighborhoods where people seem less interested in getting trees planted. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Wow, it's really amazing the work that you do, and even the different approaches. I think that's so essential because people have different views and values, especially across Canada, right? So wow, thank you so much.